Hello and welcome to World's News. I'm Kevin Andrew and we are bringing you to the latest and trustable news from all around the world. Here it is in details. The COVID-19 pandemic has altered many aspects of young people's lives in a big number of countries over the past years, resulting in even more inequalities and negative effects that schools, youth-serving groups, and other community leaders will need to address. Researchers show many of the ways in which young people have acclimated to this new normal, as well as how their actions and attitudes about community involvement have evolved. Accordingly, this year's G20 Indonesia holds its presidency and brings the theme, Recovery Together, Recovery Stronger. Indonesia's G20 presidency in Bali is scheduled to take place on November 15 to 16, 2022. The event will be the culmination of the intensive process and efforts of the entire G20 presidency's workflow, starting from ministerial meetings, working groups, and engagement groups carried out for a whole year. Indonesia appealed finance ministers and central banks heads from the group of 20 major nations, G20 conference, in Bali on Friday, July 15th, to expedite efforts to solve current global economic issues exacerbated by Russia's war in Ukraine. In her opening remarks to the two-day summit, Indonesia Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati designated for significant progress and addressing the triple threat of escalating commodity prices, worldwide inflation, and conflict. She stated that they are keenly aware that the cost of their inability to collaborate exceeds their ability to pay. The humanitarian ramifications for the world, specifically in low-income nations, would indeed be disastrous. Dr. Sri Mulyani said that over 16% of the total of low-income nations are in or near debt difficulty, and that multitudes of developing countries are uncertain to complete financial commitments in the coming year. She defined Indonesia's position as a honest broker and vowed to consult all members of the group without discrimination, recognizing the high expectation put on the conference, where discussions may forgo politics in favor of serious and technical discussions on subjects that concern. Indonesia has worked to strike a balance of interests within the group, which has been torn by the Ukraine crisis and is facing several economic difficulties from rising prices. Dr. Sri Mulyani, in contrast, emphasized Indonesia's ambition to achieve a result that can be communicated properly to all outside stakeholders as the group works to address the world deteriorating issue. According to Reuters, she greeted Ukraine's finance minister, Serhiy Marchenko, and blamed the unpleasant effects of the war solely on Russia. Dr. Yellen accused Russia's conflict against Ukraine for a worldwide crisis of food insecurity typified by price rises in food, fertilizer, and gasoline, and claimed Russia's blockade of Black Sea ports was using food as a weapon of war. She remarked that the speed and judgment which they make decision that day will determine how quickly and successfully they can bring the situation under control. Today and future, the G20 must work together and address these problems and safeguard vulnerable families from the prospect of starvation. In a virtual address to the session, United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed urged for unrestrained trade, stating that they must quickly relieve market pressure by expanding supply of and access to inexpensive food and fertilizers, and there should be no export restrictions. She stated that there have been some hopeful developments in reintegrating Ukraine's food exports with global markets, and that work on Russia's food and fertilizer exports is still underway. During a time of national and global crisis, young people have risen forward to assist their families, friends, and communities. The statistics show that not only have young people mainly followed public health norms, but they have also invested their energy in a number of ways to aid their neighbors and communities. In many respects, the finding defy popular conception of young people as self-absorbed and corrupt by fear. Even at this time of severe crisis, when concern is understandable and adolescents could be forgiven for focusing on how the epidemic is hurting them, they are demonstrating an extraordinary willingness and capacity to think in terms of helping their communities and building democracy. That's all for today's news. Watch more news on www.worldsnews.com. I'm Kevin Andrew, and have a good day.